An offshore betting line has moved Lane Kiffin to the top of the Florida job search board. Do they know something?
You are Locked On Ole Miss, your daily podcast on the Ole Miss Rebels. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to the Locked On Ole Miss podcast, the most watched Ole Miss podcast out there. I'm your host, Steven Willis, a 10-year veteran member of the national media with Yahoo Sports and a former Ole Miss staff member as well. On today's show, we're going to break down what you need to be watching for in Saturday's matchup against the Citadel. Hint, expect plenty of rest opportunities for key Rebels as they gear up for the stretch run. Next, we'll hit on the keys to the game and look ahead to a strange, unpredictable Ole Miss Florida showdown. Will the version of Trinidad Chambliss we've seen at his best return this weekend against the Bulldogs? We'll dive into that as well. But first, an offshore sports book has suddenly moved Lane Kiffin to the top of its head coaching board. We'll take a logical, level-headed look at what's driving that shift and what's real and what's noise, because context matters. All of this and more on today's Locked On Ole Miss podcast. Remember, we're free and available in all the podcast apps and on YouTube. Thank you for making Locked On Ole Miss your first listen every day, and a special hello to the insiders and everydayers who make the show what it is. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if that bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. Download that app today. So, all right, so today, or yesterday, I should say, one of the online sports books offshore posted Lane Kiffin as the favorite for the Florida job. And of course, Twitter was a-buzzing whenever it got named. And whenever that happens this early in the search, that's usually because of the public putting money down and trying to, hope for bets to get money on every candidate, kind of. But when you look at the Lane Kiffin to Florida, there's a couple of things that are at play here. First of all, it is the social media charge of people of Lane Kiffin, Lane Kiffin, Lane Kiffin. It's annoying. Anybody that covers Ole Miss is already sick of Florida people, and it's just getting started. I'm not sick of Florida people. I'm enjoying them, but most of them are sick of Florida people. But why did this news kind of percolate out? Why did Lane Kiffin jump up the board? And I think it's because of a rumor that cannot logically be true. And if it is, we have thoughts as well. So let me tell you the rumor that's going around right now. And that rumor is Florida has given Lane Kiffin an ultimatum of next week to let them know. Between next week and the Egg Bowl, the contract is going to be hammered out by Jimmy Sexton. After the Egg Bowl, I'm assuming he is going to take the job, or at least it will leak out that he has taken the job. And basically, that is what's going around, and you're seeing it everywhere. Lane Kiffin's got an ultimatum. He has to decide by next week. If he says yes, we'll have the contract done by the end of the season, and shortly after the Egg Bowl, you'll be the Florida head coach, or the GM will be in place, or something like that. And Florida fans are eating that up. They are, because they don't understand the logical fallacy that's involved with that. And it also proves that they just don't know Lane Kiffin at all. Not even a little bit. To think that Lane Kiffin is going to sign anything before the last game of the season, that's a fallacy. Because why go someplace for an opportunity to win a national championship by sabotaging a place that has an opportunity to win a national championship? Ole Miss is 6th in the country. They're a 4th and 2 stop away from beating the Georgia Bulldogs in Athens and being 8-0 and 2nd or 3rd in the country. They have one of the better teams in the country. So why would you sabotage that so you can go start from scratch and try and build it up at another location that It's going to have to be built through the transfer portal and all over the place because players are going to scatter absolutely everywhere, and it's probably going to start next week. That doesn't make sense. Doesn't make a little bit of sense, which makes me wonder the validity of the offshore betting line of moving Lane Kiffin up as anything other than clickbait. Now, we all know that Lane Kiffin is SEO gold. He is. If you list him on any title, any headline, it's going to get clicked at a higher rate than if you don't. Lane Kiffin chooses his quarterback for game one is going to be read more than Ole Miss chooses its quarterback for game one. And it's just because of the SEO gold and all of that. But what you need to understand, Florida fan, is Lane Kiffin doesn't operate the way he does on Twitter in the other aspects of his life. We have been on this ride for 6 years now. So Ole Miss fans should probably feel like they know Lane Kiffin pretty well. And the one thing that you pick up on really quickly is how much winning means to him. How much winning someplace that is not won in a while means to him. And what I mean by that, simply, I'm not saying he's not taking the Florida job, okay? I'm not saying that. I haven't said that one time. I think he would be silly to take it, but I haven't said that he's not. And I want to, but you can't say that because the other thing you know about Lane is he's whimsical. But Lane Kiffin wants to win games, which means he is not going to jeopardize a potential playoff run for the opportunity to go build another program up so they can make a playoff run. That's not going to be a way anyway that it happens. So this rumor that's out there, I think it's legitimately bunk. It just is. They're playing telephone game. They're loud. I think Florida fans might be louder than Texas fans as far as spewing rumors into the void. But that noise and that rumor heard from the right person is enough to where Lane Kiffin goes from third to first on the offshore betting line. Okay, it happens, whatever. So we will see over the next coming weeks, okay? If Ole Miss defeats the Citadel, which they should, we're going to talk about that game in the second and third segment, by the way. Our crossover today, corrupted file, so I'm having to kind of do this on the fly. So bear with me on that. But this playoff run means literally everything to this man. And I know that everybody's like, that's a Florida fan, are like, well, obviously he's itching to get out of Ole Miss. He needs to get here as soon as possible. He needs to get here as soon as possible. That's not going to happen. He's not going to do that. Because if you think he would, you don't understand the person that's there. He's not going to Bobby Petrino get run out of town in a playoff run. He's not going to accept a Florida offer because he would not be allowed to coach the playoffs. We've seen the ability or lack thereof of Lane Kiffin to multitask when he was the offensive coordinator at Alabama and he took the head coaching job at FAU. It's all different. So he got moved to the top of this betting line, but I don't see any reason to worry about because I haven't seen anything actionable that makes me think there's something to worry about other than people spewing rumors into the void, which happens in absolutely every coaching search. And it happened in 2022 in the Auburn coaching search. And that one is still more intense than the Florida search right now. So that's my thoughts on that. He moves up to number one on the offshore betting list. Okay, whatever. You're in the same position you were the day before when he was third. It's just the way it sits. But what's happened is it moved up because the right people told the offshore betting company a little piece of information that has been yelled over and over on Florida message boards and on Twitter. That's just what it is. And I don't think that he is going anywhere at this point. I don't. But Florida fans are going to tell you it's a done deal. And next week he's going to decide. And day after the Egg Bowl, he's going to sign a contract. And then he'll be the Florida coach right then when Ole Miss could be in the playoffs. Now, this could all change. Let's say Ole Miss drops the game to Florida and drops the game to Mississippi State and they miss the playoffs. Me and Bill Flowers talked about that today, or yesterday, I should say. Talking with Bill about that lets you know that if he doesn't make the playoffs this year for Ole Miss, is he really worth $13.5 million? That question starts being real whenever you have two playoff runs that you should have made and you didn't make either one. So we'll see what happens with Lane Kiffin. If Lane Kiffin makes the playoffs, I don't think he's going anywhere. Timing is going to make it to where he can't, because Florida is not going to be willing to wait, as you can hear by the rumor of putting an ultimatum on Lane Kiffin, which that's a hilarious thing, by the way. So we'll see exactly how it goes. And Lane Kiffin could end up at Florida. He could end up not at Florida. He could end up at LSU. Heck, he could end up at Texas A&M next season for all we know. So we'll see exactly how that looks. You know, it's going to be a potentially sloppy game, seriously. But if it isn't, it actually serves a real purpose. Now, every Ole Miss team that has gone on a serious run has handled their November cupcake with ease. No drama, no nonsense. So what exactly should we be looking for against the Citadel? What are the boxes that Ole Miss needs to check to keep everything on track heading into the stretch run? We'll talk about all of that coming up next. When the opening whistle blows on a new repair, get your crew moving forward with Supply House. Order today and see parts on your doorstep tomorrow. Over 280,000 plumbing, HVAC, and electrical items from the most trusted brands in the business. Their real-time industry inventory, I should say, and honest lead times keep you from punting projects, while their industry-leading customer service always has your blind side covered. You need parts fast for a project? Well, Supply House has next day delivery. Talk about a game changer. The Part Finder tool has 3D schematics that can save you hours on jobs where every detail matters. And their Trademaster perks like priority shipping and a dedicated support line that makes the whole process even smoother. Join that free Trademaster program today and score serious perks like priority shipping, lower prices, and the dedicated support line. Visit supplyhouse.com to sign up for free and use promo code SHCollege5. That's all one word, SHCollege5, for 5% off your first order. That's Supply House, real people, real service. Do us a favor, give us a like, subscribe, and comment on the video. Subscribe to the podcast on whichever audio podcatcher you're listening to this on, and give it a 5-star review. It costs absolutely nothing, but keeps all of this free. And Locked On is getting ready to change the game yet again, all in the name of having fun following your team. It's coming in December. And don't forget to check out a second listen on the network. Nearly every team, college or pro, is ready for you. All right, it's time to look at the Citadel. Like I said earlier, I had a crossover, record it. The file got corrupted, and now I'm just trying to make do because I don't have time to re-record and set all of that up and all of that stuff. So I'm going to try and talk about it and mention some of the stuff that I picked up and gleaned when I was talking with them, and we'll see how it goes. But that is what happens, and that is why there's not a crossover episode out. Really, really unfortunate stuff. So this Ole Miss Citadel game is interesting because of where it sits, because we talked about this stretch of games. It's the biggest in school history because of what it can be. I know opponents of other teams want to make it about them, but it's not about them. It doesn't matter if you're playing the Citadel or you're playing Florida or you're playing Mississippi State. Those are all massively huge games because of what they mean. You can't afford to drop an L in any of those games. And Ole Miss is 6th in the country according to the college football playoff rankings, with a path, a legitimate path to finishing in the top 4. And if they finish in the top 4, they're going to be playing in the Sugar Bowl likely. And that is cool. It is. Texas A&M, if they go undefeated and get there, it's likely going to be the Cotton Bowl. The top 4 has a chance to be really interesting. So this game against the Citadel is going to be really huge. So for this game to matter and really help Ole Miss, because that's the thing that you want. You don't want it to be very risk averse, but you want to make sure that you can get something out of this game. And the first thing is you need to not play dirty. You need to play clean. So play clean. That is the only way that the Citadel can hurt you, is if you don't. That would be turnovers, that'd be penalties, that would be overall sloppy play. If there is a clean level of execution by the offense in this game, that is a good sign for the games moving forward, as far as a team that is completely locked in. And this team appears to be locked in. Last week, before the South Carolina game, we had an interview with Daquan Wright, the Ole Miss tight end. And he said, no days off for the next 30 days, that nobody is allowed to have a day off in the next 30 days. And that is a sign of a locked-in football team. So we'll see. Now, the second thing is, I want to see the timing between Trinidad Chambliss and the Ole Miss wide receivers. It kind of needs to improve. Because when you look at exactly what is at stake for the Ole Miss offense moving forward, because you have Florida coming up in 9 days, something like that, in Oxford, Saturday night. Ron Roberts has had a lot of success against Charlie Weiss Jr. and Lane Kiffin. Now, we're probably due for Lane Kiffin to kind of go off a little bit, but over the games that they have competed against each other, Ron Roberts' defense has kind of stood up strong. It's been tall. The first one was at Baylor, that 2021 Sugar Bowl, if you remember what that was about. The second one at Auburn. The third one was at Florida. Last year, the Jackson Dart game, Ron Roberts was the defensive coordinator. This is Lane Kiffin's 4th bite of the apple at the Florida defense. Now, it will be interesting to see exactly what type of Florida team you get, how motivated they are, because that is going to tell the tale in this game, because defensively they're a very good team. But if they're a little bit down, if they're thinking about the transfer portal, you can kind of take them apart. But this game against the Citadel is going to be really huge because of the Trinidad Chambliss factor. Now, get the game out of hand so you can rest some people and get some meaningful reps to some backup players in the second half. And what I mean by that is go ahead and get Austin Simmons some reps. Go ahead and get some reps to Shakai Mills-Knight or Logan Diggs or even Damian Thomas. Maybe Caleb Cunningham gets on the field. Maybe the younger wide receivers play more of a role. Winston Watkins is out there quite a bit. Maybe some of the younger linebackers are on the field, or younger defensive backs like Keon Young, those guys. Get them on the field and get the starters out of the game so they can rest. One of the advantages that Ole Miss has in this season is this game. And you need to be able to have an extra bye week, kind of, going into the Florida game. So it's bye week Florida, bye week Mississippi State. If that happens, you will be sitting pretty. And if that happens, you will be exactly where you want to be, because that Florida game has a chance to get super weird, especially now that it just everybody keeps piling on. It's already massive to Ole Miss just for the fact of what it could mean. If Ole Miss beats the Citadel in Florida, they're likely 10-1 and they've punched their ticket into the college football playoff. But if Ole Miss loses that Florida game for whatever reason, whatever stupid reason is out there, then all of a sudden that Mississippi State game becomes real scary, because there's nothing scarier than a 5-loss Egg Bowl team. And everybody that has followed this game as long as I have knows that. So we'll see exactly how that goes. Anyway, and our final segment is a military academy style run game. No, not really. It's not the triple option, but the run game is on the menu for Saturday. So how will Ole Miss look against the Citadel? We'll talk paths, what this matchup tells us, and of course, give you our pick, all coming up next. The NBA is back, and there's no better way to get in on the action than with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Even if you missed the start of the game or you want to ride the hot hand, FanDuel has live bets on everything from who will score next to the fourth quarter comebacks. Plus, you can even combine your live bets into a same-game parlay for a shot at an even bigger payout. It keeps every game exciting, especially when your team is making the late push. So right now, FanDuel is giving new customers $300 in bonus bets when that first $5 bet wins. So head to FanDuel.com to sign up and play your game with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. So we talk about some keys to the game with the Citadel on Saturday. The other thing is what you need to be looking out for, because there are some things that I think you need to be looking out for, especially with the last two games of the season that is coming up rapidly. One of which that you need to look at is get Kewan Lacy off the field as soon as possible for Ole Miss. If Kewan Lacy has 5 carries in this game and you're up 14-0, get him off the field, hand the ball off to Logan Diggs, hand the ball off to Damian Taylor. You should be fine. Save Kewan Lacy's legs in this game. This should be a stat padding opportunity, potentially, but if it's at the expense of the Florida game and the Mississippi State game, you obviously want your guys in the game. And the Citadel is very run-centric, not triple option. It doesn't look like the Naval Academy or anything like that, but it's going to be on the Ole Miss front seven to show up. We have said all during the season that this football team will go as far as the front seven takes them. And in this game, it's going to be a run game, so it's going to be on the front seven to do it. Now, the rules have changed. The rules have changed to where these triple option offenses and all that cut blocking, they've changed that rule a little bit to make it a little bit more difficult. That is the reason you've seen a switch to a wing T type system as opposed to an old school wishbone type system. So we'll see. The Citadel wants to run the football. They want to run it well. Their passing game actually opened up against VMI in their last game. But if you look at this Citadel offense, you need to take away the run, period, because they want the clock running. They want the game shorter. I guess Ole Miss probably wants the game shorter as well, but Ole Miss wants 35, 45 points, something like that on the board. So, and the third thing is play everybody, including on the back end. Get Keon Young some reps. Get Ladarian Clardy on the field if he's available. Put Cortez Thomas back there at safety. You might need them in a playoff run against the Florida Gators or against the Mississippi State Bulldogs, or in the first round where you're playing Virginia, as it's suggested in the last night rankings. Get everybody in the game and get them on the field, because if they are and they perform, you can use that. Cedric Beavers got thrust into last week's game and actually played really well, to the point where I kind of expect Cedric Beavers to earn even more reps moving forward. I like Cedric Beavers and think that he has a chance to be a really good corner on the field. But with the injury to Antonio Kite, Beavers was able to step in and he played pretty well. So we'll see exactly how that goes. Anyway, this show is a little bit shorter. I understand that. I get that because of what happened. I do apologize. We had a crossover all filmed, and due to file corruption, it was basically gone. So I do apologize for that. But looking at this Ole Miss team, not going to have a reaction show after the basketball game on Friday. We're going to react to the basketball game Saturday morning when we do the pregame show for the Citadel. Saturday will look remarkably similar to what it has looked like. So we'll see that as well. Anyway, should be a lot of fun. This is a game that Ole Miss should win. This is a game that Ole Miss should win fairly easy. And next week's game has a chance to get oh so weird. I cannot wait for that week. Oh, the weirdness in that week is going to be fantastic. So stick around with us. We'll try not to steer you wrong, and we'll talk to you in just a little bit. But this is the Locked On Ole Miss podcast, and thank you very much for making that podcast your go-to source for Ole Miss information. We pride ourselves on offering the most comprehensive perspective, which is why we're the front door of Ole Miss. If you don't believe me, Google Ole Miss podcast and see how much we come up. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and comment. It helps the show, and it's absolutely free. Your support means the world to us. Thank you for making Locked On Ole Miss your first listen today. For your second listen, check out Locked On SEC. Chris Gordy breaks down the best conference in all of college sports, from the rivalries to the championship to every game in between. Find Locked On SEC on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. It's part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Hotty toddy, and remember, analytics is just the old English word that means bad football. We'll see you tomorrow.